Hidden for centuries, the buried alien lab discovered by a human technician, in the far reaches of humanity's expansion across the stars. On a distant and forgotten planet named Eliros V, a routine maintenance crew had landed for basic geological surveys. The planet had long been dismissed as uninhabited and barren, its surface scarred by old tectonic shifts and forgotten ruins. But under the dead rock, something ancient had been waiting, something not meant to be uncovered by human eyes. Marcus Holland, an unassuming human technician, was part of this crew, more accustomed to fixing solar generators and repairing atmospheric stations than making discoveries of any note. He was a calm, methodical man who enjoyed the solitude of distant assignments. Little did he know, this one would change his life forever and perhaps the future of humanity. Whispers in the ground. Marcus had been on Eliros V for just over a week, and his shift had been uneventful so far. The planet's dry, thin atmosphere made communication difficult, and the days dragged on in silence, save for the hum of his equipment. He had just finished setting up a seismic scanner to monitor the planet's tectonic activity. Routine work, nothing exciting, but something odd began to register on his instruments, subtle, almost imperceptible tremors that didn't match any known geological patterns. Must be a glitch, he muttered, adjusting the settings, but the readings only grew more erratic. Puzzled, Marcus decided to trace the source of the anomaly. As he ventured deeper into the rocky plains, the signals led him to a collapsed valley. Its walls were jagged, as though ripped apart by some ancient catastrophe. At the bottom, half buried beneath centuries of dust and debris, he saw it, a faint, metallic glimmer. Curiosity overtook him. He cleared away the dirt and rubble until a massive, perfectly smooth surface was exposed. Unlike anything he had ever seen, it was not natural. His heart raced as he activated his comms. Base, this is Marcus. You might want to come down here. I think I've found something. The lab of the ancients. After hours of digging, Marcus and a few members of his crew managed to open a narrow passage leading into the depths. What they discovered stunned them into silence. The interior was an immense, hollowed-out structure, clearly of alien origin. Strange symbols lined the walls, glowing faintly as though they had just awakened after centuries of dormancy. Everything felt untouched, preserved in time, a tomb of knowledge waiting to be unraveled. Massive consoles flickered to life at Marcus's touch, casting the room in an eerie, pale light. This isn't just some ruins, one of the crew whispered. It's a laboratory. Marcus approached what appeared to be the central hub. A holographic display emerged, showing complex data streams, alien molecular structures, and creatures. His eyes widened as he realized what he was looking at. This lab had been a center of biological experimentation. The creatures shown were unlike anything he'd ever seen, forms that defied the known laws of nature, some barely recognizable as life at all. They were experimenting with life itself, Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. But why? As they explored further, Marcus discovered chambers filled with preserved samples, alien DNA, strange organisms in stasis, and even human-like figures suspended in liquid-filled pods. The question that had been gnawing at him since his discovery now felt urgent. What had happened here, and why had it been abandoned? Forgotten power. Over the following days, Marcus spent every waking moment in the lab, trying to decode the alien technology. He was no scientist, but the lab seemed almost to respond to him, as if it had been waiting for a mind like his. Each new discovery made the pieces fall into place. The ancient aliens who had built this place were not mere researchers, they were architects of life, manipulating genetics to create species, weapons, and organisms for reasons long forgotten. But the true shock came when Marcus uncovered a file in the deepest chamber. It wasn't just aliens they had been experimenting on, it was humans. According to the data, this civilization had encountered early humanity thousands of years ago. They had abducted humans from Earth, conducting bizarre experiments on their biology, enhancing them in ways that transcended evolution. Marcus's hands shook as he read further. Some of these enhanced humans were still alive, preserved in cryogenic stasis deep within the facility. One name appeared repeatedly in the data logs: Project Ascension. What the hell is Project Ascension? He muttered. As if in response, one of the chambers hummed to life, and a pod opened with a hiss. Inside was a human figure, tall, muscular, and impossibly perfect. The figure's eyes opened, glowing with an unsettling light, and Marcus took a step back, heart pounding. This wasn't a normal human, it was something more. We're never supposed to find this place, Marcus whispered, his voice trembling. He realized, too late, that the lab had not been forgotten by accident. It had been sealed away for a reason. The awakening. Before Marcus could react, alarms blared throughout the lab. The awakened human, if it could still be called that, stepped out of the pod. It moved with fluid grace, scanning its surroundings with a calculating intelligence that sent chills down Marcus's spine. "You shouldn't be here," it said, its voice calm but powerful. "They'll come for you now." "Who will?" Marcus asked, barely able to speak. "The architects, the ones who made us." The figure looked directly at Marcus. "You've triggered the failsafe. They're coming." Suddenly, Marcus realized the gravity of his actions. This wasn't just an ancient lab, it was a trap, a warning to anyone who dared to uncover the dark secrets hidden here. And now that it had been activated, the very beings who had created this lab and the experiments within would return to reclaim their creation. Marcus's mind raced. The survival of humanity was now at stake. If the architects returned, would they see humans as equals or as mere subjects for their twisted experiments? Humanity's choice. With the architect's creations awakening all around him, Marcus had to make a choice. He could destroy the lab, sealing the horrors within forever, or he could unlock the secrets of Project Ascension, harnessing the technology to push humanity to new heights. The line between salvation and destruction blurred as the ancient systems powered up, preparing for the arrival of the architects. And as Marcus stood in the heart of the buried lab, humanity's fate now rested in his hands. The architects return. Shadows from the stars. The moment Marcus activated the ancient systems, a signal was sent, a beacon, invisible to human eyes but blindingly clear to those who had left it behind, far beyond the edges of known space, in a place no human ship had ever traveled. The architects stirred from their slumber. The warning that had been etched into their forgotten technology had finally been triggered. On Iliros V, Marcus stood frozen in the lab's control room. The awakened human-like figure, still standing motionless near the pod, spoke again, its voice even more unsettling than before. "They will arrive soon. We have little time." "Who are you?" Marcus asked, his voice hoarse. "I am the result of Project Ascension, the first, and perhaps the last of my kind. I was created to ascend beyond human limitations, but I was never meant to wake up unless they returned." Marcus's mind raced. This figure, this enhanced human, seemed calm, even resigned, but the implications of what it was saying chilled him to the bone. The architects had not just experimented on humans, they had created something entirely new, a hybrid species, capable of terrifying power. "We have to destroy this place," Marcus said suddenly, "before they arrive." But the figure shook its head. "No, you cannot destroy what you do not understand." Marcus felt a surge of frustration. "Then what are we supposed to do? Just wait for them to come and take us apart like lab rats?" The figure stepped closer, its glowing eyes narrowing. "There is another way. The forgotten key." In the deepest chamber of the lab, Marcus followed the enhanced being, whom he now called Erebus, after an ancient myth about primordial darkness, down a series of hallways he had not yet explored. The atmosphere was growing tense, and the low hum of the facility's power systems grew louder with every step. "We were not meant to be tools, nor slaves," Erebus said as they walked. "The architects' power lies in their technology, but they feared what we could become. They sealed away their knowledge, but they underestimated the will to survive." Erebus led Marcus to a vault-like room at the core of the lab. Inside was a console unlike the others, a massive device connected to countless data streams, glowing faintly in a pattern Marcus had never seen before. It pulsed with energy. "This is the key," Erebus said, gesturing toward the device. "It contains the knowledge of the architects, their technology, their plans, their weaknesses." Marcus stared at the machine, his thoughts a blur. "If this thing contains their knowledge, then why didn't you use it before?" Erebus's expression darkened. "Because to access it means becoming what they feared most, something beyond human, something even they could not control. It would give us the power to fight them, but it comes at a cost." Marcus hesitated. The temptation was clear. With the knowledge stored within this ancient vault, humanity could leap forward thousands of years in technology. They could stand a chance against the architects when they arrived, but he knew there had to be more. "What cost?" Marcus asked, his voice low. "You would cease to be human," Erebus said simply. "Your body, your mind, it would be changed, irrevocably. You would become something, like me." The weight of the decision pressed down on Marcus. He had uncovered this lab, awakened Erebus, and now stood on the brink of unlocking the greatest power the universe had ever known. But at what price? War on the horizon. While Marcus wrestled with his decision, the first signs of the Architect's return began to manifest. In orbit around Iliros V, the crew stationed on the Artemis, the human ship that had brought Marcus and his team here, detected strange energy readings, massive, impossible signatures far beyond anything human technology could explain. "We're picking up multiple ships," the comms officer said, her voice trembling. "They're massive, and they're not ours." Panic spread through the crew as they realized what this meant. The Architects had returned. Ships, larger than any human vessel, began descending into the planet's atmosphere, their sleek, black forms cutting through the sky with terrifying precision. There was no mistaking their intent. They were here to reclaim what was theirs. On the ground, Marcus stood before the vault, the weight of his choice heavy in the air. He knew time was running out. He could hear the distant roar of the Architects' ships entering the atmosphere, feel the vibrations of their approach. They were coming for the lab, for Erebus, and for him. "You don't have to do this," Erebus said quietly. "You can leave now, destroy the lab, and run. They might not find you, but if you want to save your people, if you want to survive, you must take the next step." Marcus stared at the device in front of him, his heart pounding in his chest. He thought of the billions of humans across the galaxy, unaware of the threat descending upon them. Could he really abandon them, knowing what was at stake? Could he live with the knowledge that he had the power to fight back but chose not to? With trembling hands, Marcus placed his palm on the console. A surge of energy shot through him, and for a moment, everything went white. When his vision cleared, he was no longer the same man. Ascension. The transformation was instant, yet incomprehensible. Marcus felt his mind expand, connecting to the vast network of the alien technology that had been sealed for centuries. Information flooded his consciousness: architectural blueprints, genetic modifications, weaponry designs, and most importantly, the weaknesses of the Architects. He could see them now, the enormous alien ships hovering above the planet, and he understood their power, but he also understood how to fight them. Erebus watched silently as Marcus, now something more than human, turned toward him. His eyes glowed with the same unsettling light as Erebus's, and his body had become leaner, stronger, faster. He was no longer bound by the limits of human physiology. He had ascended. "Do you understand now?" Erebus asked. Marcus nodded, feeling the raw power coursing through his veins. He could feel the Architects' ships, sense their technology, and already he was formulating a plan. But with the power came a deep sense of unease. He was no longer just a man, he was something far beyond that. "We fight," Marcus said, his voice steady. "Humanity's stand." As the first of the Architect ships began landing on the surface of Iliros V, Marcus and Erebus prepared for the inevitable confrontation. The lab, now fully powered and under Marcus's control, began to hum with life. Defense systems activated, and the ancient weapons of the Architects turned against their creators. The humans aboard the Artemis watched in awe as the landscape of the planet shifted. Enormous towers of alien metal rising from the ground, powered by energy that defied human understanding. Marcus, now more machine than man, had become the lab's new master, and with it, the defender of humanity's future. But the Architects were relentless. Their ships descended like black monoliths, discharging troops and drones that swarmed across the planet's surface. They were vast, unfeeling, and infinitely more advanced than anything humanity had ever faced. Yet, Marcus stood tall, wielding the power of the very beings who sought to enslave his species. The war had begun, and with it, the fate of humanity would be decided not by fleets or armies, but by a single man who had dared to unlock the forbidden secrets of the past. The War of Ascension. The Architects' wrath. The Architects' ships landed with the force of titans, sending shockwaves through Iliros V's crust. Dark, gleaming towers unfolded from the massive vessels, sending out waves of smaller, insect-like drones that spread across the landscape like a plague. Above them, the colossal structures cast long shadows over the planet, and the alien technology Marcus had activated in the lab was now their only hope of defense. From his command center deep within the buried lab, Marcus felt every tremor, every shift in the battlefield. His enhanced mind processed the alien data, transmitting commands faster than any human general could. The lab had become his fortress, and the ancient technology was now under his complete control. We don't have much time, Erebus said, standing beside Marcus. They'll throw everything they have at us. Marcus's glowing eyes flickered as he watched the enemies advance through the holographic displays. His newly expanded consciousness allowed him to see the battlefield in ways that no human mind could comprehend. The architects were more than just advanced, they were precise, methodical, and utterly ruthless. Their forces moved like clockwork, coordinating their assault without a word spoken. But Marcus was no longer just human. He was connected to the lab, to the very systems the architects had designed to dominate the universe. He had become something new, and now it was time to use that power. I know, Marcus replied. His voice carried a strange calm. But they've underestimated us. Turning the tide. The first wave of the architects' drones swept toward the lab, their metallic legs clicking against the rocky surface as they moved with inhuman speed. Armed with energy weapons that could slice through steel, the drones began their assault on the outer defenses Marcus had activated moments before. Automated turrets, constructed by the lab's alien machinery, emerged from the ground and began firing in rapid succession. Beams of plasma and bursts of alien energy shot into the advancing swarm, incinerating drones in midair. But for every drone that fell, 10 more took its place, their numbers seemingly endless. Inside the lab, Marcus's hands hovered over the alien control interface. His mind was working faster than any human brain could ever manage, analyzing data streams, processing battlefield information, and adjusting strategies in real time. The lab's defensive systems were powerful, but they wouldn't hold forever against the sheer might of the architects' forces. We need more time, Erebus said, his tone grim. The outer defenses won't last. Marcus nodded, his mind racing. Then, an idea came to him, a possibility that no human general would have considered, but he wasn't bound by human limitations anymore. We don't need to hold them off, Marcus said, his eyes narrowing. We need to turn their weapons against them. Without another word, Marcus extended his consciousness deeper into the lab's systems, searching for the controls that governed the ancient technology. The architects had left behind more than just weapons, they had left behind the very tools they had used to shape life, to control entire ecosystems. And those tools were still functional. With a thought, Marcus activated the biomanipulation chambers buried deep within the lab's lower levels. Alien organisms, dormant for centuries, stirred to life, their DNA programmed to adapt and evolve in real time. Creatures the size of small mountains began to awaken, their monstrous forms slumbering within the underground biovats. The architects had designed these creatures as biological weapons, beasts capable of devastating entire armies. Now, they would serve a new master. The awakening of titans. The ground shook as the first of the creatures emerged from the lab's depths. Towering beasts with thick, armored hides and razor-sharp claws, they lumbered forward, their glowing eyes locked on the advancing architect forces. They moved with surprising speed, their immense forms crushing drones beneath their feet as they let out deafening roars that echoed across the planet's surface. The architects had never anticipated that their own creations would be turned against them. The swarm of drones that had been overwhelming the lab's defenses now faced a new enemy, one they were not equipped to deal with. The bioengineered titans tore through the drones like paper, their massive limbs sweeping aside hundreds of enemies with each strike. Plasma fire bounced harmlessly off their armored hides, and their strength was unmatched. From the command center, Marcus watched as the tide began to turn. The drones faltered, their once precise movements becoming erratic as they struggled to adjust to the new threat. But Marcus knew this was only the beginning. The architects wouldn't be so easily defeated. They'll send something worse, Erebus warned. The drones were only the first wave. Marcus nodded, his mind already calculating the next move. Then we'll give them something worse to fight. Chapter 14, The Architects' Counterattack. As the battle raged on the surface, Marcus sensed a shift in the architects' tactics. The towering ships that hovered above the planet began to pulse with energy, their sleek forms shimmering as they prepared their next move. The lab's sensors picked up massive power surges coming from the ships, and Marcus realized what was happening. They're preparing to use their planetary weapon, Marcus said, his voice tight with urgency. Erebus's expression darkened. A weapon like that could wipe out everything on this planet, including us. Marcus knew he had to act fast. The architects had weapons that could level entire cities, and they weren't afraid to use them. If they unleashed their full power, Iliros V would be reduced to a barren wasteland, and the lab, along with all its secrets, would be destroyed. But Marcus had one last card to play. We need to hit them before they can fire, Marcus said, his mind already formulating a plan. I can use the lab's systems to disable their weapon. Erebus looked at him, doubt flickering in his eyes. That's a long shot, even for you. Marcus smiled grimly. We don't have a choice. The final gambit. In the moments that followed, Marcus connected directly to the lab's core systems, feeling the raw energy of the ancient technology flow through him. He could sense the architect's weapon powering up, its energy levels climbing rapidly. They were preparing to fire. But Marcus wasn't going to let that happen. Using the lab's biomanipulation technology, Marcus initiated a sequence that would send out a pulse, a disruption field powerful enough to interfere with the architect's energy systems. It was a risky move, and if it didn't work, the planet would be destroyed. As the architect's weapon reached critical mass, Marcus triggered the pulse. The effect was immediate. The ground trembled as a shockwave rippled through the atmosphere, distorting the air and disrupting the energy fields around the architect's ships. The massive vessels shuddered, their sleek forms flickering as the pulse overloaded their systems. And then, with a blinding flash, the energy buildup in the architect's weapon destabilized. One of the ships exploded in a burst of white-hot light, the force of the blast sending debris raining down onto the planet. The other ships, now crippled by the pulse, began to retreat, their engines sputtering as they struggled to regain control. Marcus let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. They had done it. They had survived. But the war was far from over. A new dawn. The battle was won, but Marcus knew that the architects would return. The pulse had bought them time, but it hadn't defeated the enemy. The architects were too powerful, too vast. They would come back, and next time, they would be even more prepared. But humanity had something they didn't. Standing in the ruins of the battlefield, Marcus looked at the towering beasts that still roamed the planet, at the lab's ancient technology that hummed with untapped power. He had unlocked secrets that the architects had never intended for humans to possess. We'll be ready, Marcus said, his voice filled with resolve. Erebus stood beside him, his expression unreadable. You've changed, Marcus, you're not human anymore. Marcus turned to him, his glowing eyes reflecting the setting sun. Maybe not, but I'm still fighting for them. As the skies of Iliros V cleared, Marcus knew that the real battle was only beginning. The architects had returned, but so had something far more dangerous, humanity, armed with the power of the gods. And this time, they wouldn't be fighting to survive. They would be fighting to win.